Good day and welcome back to another Dbz Dokkan battle video. In this video we are going to be taking a look at the performance of the Agl Zamasu in the Cell Max event. Now, full disclaimer as always, the Cell Max event is an incredibly tough challenge that's best taken on by units with very high levels of damage reduction, guard or evasion, or a combination of those abilities. It's also an event that's very strange in design in that the first two phases are relatively difficult. I would say they're on the moderate difficulty of the spectrum. However, they then descend into chaos with the tech Cell Max event. So it's definitely something to facilitate. Now, outside of that, in terms of pretty much everything else, Zamasu also has type disadvantage. So that's also something that's quite substantial. His type disadvantage obviously, tends to give him a little bit of a headache, and especially when he's taking on Cell Max, that's amplified. Not that it makes him bad, but it definitely will affect how he performs. For me, obviously looking at Zamasu, and we'll talk a little bit about him now, but I think the second form, everyone knows is the most defensive form. I don't think you would ever transform him into his mutation form in specifically the Cell Max event, just due to the fact that it reduces his damage reduction by 20%, and this is just not ideal in the long run. So, let's discuss Zamasu. So Zamasu, as everyone knows, is one of the better EZAs to have come out, and everyone quite likes him. You have the Agl Zamasu, which in his base form is pretty strong, 30% healing, attack and defense of 140%. Extreme class allies get 2 key and 40% damage reduction. He then transforms, keeps everything the same, gets more attack and defense, raises his attack and defense, gets additional attack on super, gets 50% damage reduction. His healing gets reduced a little bit, but it's still pretty good. And then you have the mutation form, which is just not all out offensive, but very offensive, and has a crit chance. So the thing is with Agl Zamasu is, firstly, we did miss one rotation with him because he didn't start in the first turn, but you do want him to stack a little bit. Depending on how lucky you get with stacks, can affect how well you do against Cell Max with Zamasu. The more stacks you get in his first and second form, the more defense you're going to have, and the better time you're going to have against Cell. Remember, Zamasu is taking 1.5 times modified damage from Cell. However, he is applying a 50% damage reduction to that. So you should, in theory, still do a lot better than other Agl units. Well, not in theory, mathematically he will be better. But the more defense he can acquire before that point, the better. It's just a plain fact. Obviously, in an ideal world, you would be linking the tech Zamasu, and you wouldn't really put Agl Zamasu in the first slot, at least not until he has lots more defense. But in certain situations, you can't avoid that, especially if you don't have tech LR Fusion Zamasu. So, yeah. All in all, I think Zamasu does great. Firstly, I already know how his phase against the tech unit's going to go. I think he's a great unit. He does need to get some additional stacks though. So if you are planning to use him to tank Cell Max, then what I can suggest to you is I would suggest letting him get a couple of attacks in, maybe miss some supers with other units, slow down your damage, only hit 12 keys if you can. That extra 1 or 2 stacks will make a big difference to how he tanks. So Zamasu, with only a few stacks, not really prioritized heavily, you're going to see him here. Get, I think, 2 stacks or so, which is not a lot. It's not a lot of stacks. It's not prioritizing him. It's not heavily placing him in a situation where he's able to really build up that defense to a ridiculous level. And with just these 2 stacks alone, he does a great job. So that's kind of the situation you're in, whereby if you could afford him, let's say 2 more super attacks, then he'd be looking very, very good. Very, very good. Again, I think he looks excellent regardless. He has type disadvantage against one of the hardest, if not the, actually I think he is the hardest tech boss in the game. And he's going to tank a super attack from him relatively well, quite well. It's just going to depend on how many stacks you get beforehand. You know, the more stacks you get, the better it's going to be. If you can get 4 stacks comparative to that 2 stacks, then Zamasu is probably going to be able to tank it for a lot less. Remember, every bit of defense that Zamasu gets essentially doubled, gets amplified. So if he's gaining 100k defense, he's actually gaining 200k defense. And in this specific situation against some max, because of the time disadvantage, he's actually gaining around 125. So it is very important to get those stacks. Those are really what's going to kind of push you to seeing Zamasu be really, really great. However, he does great anyway. We're going to see him in the first start. He's going to take a super attack right on the chin, and honestly, he's going to do quite well. 700k damage seems like a lot, but remember, he's an AGL type unit with only 2 stacks. 2 more stacks. If you'd find off his super tier, we'd be looking at maybe around the 500 or so damage, 500k, which for an AGL unit, considering we didn't even prioritize stacks, is really good. Bye.